Gold is moving, silver is accelerating, and oil is waiting just below a level that could change everything. For months, headlines have focused on inflation, interest rates, and temporary volatility, but beneath the surface, something quieter is unfolding. Capital is rotating, not loudly, not dramatically, but deliberately. Gold has already begun to set the tone. Silver is confirming the shift. And oil is approaching a threshold that historically does not stay silent for long. When precious metals move first, they are rarely reacting to yesterday's news. They are preparing for tomorrow's conditions. The real question is not whether prices are rising. The real question is what they are anticipating that the broader market has not yet priced in. Because when oil finally catches up, the cost structure of the global economy adjusts with it. Margins compress, valuations reprice, liquidity tightens, and by the time the data confirms the shift, the opportunity to prepare has already passed. Welcome to AG Market Stress. Those who have observed markets for decades understand that the most important warnings rarely arrive with noise. They come with signals. In every major economic transition, there is a sequence. Gold moves first, then silver accelerates, and only later does energy confirm. Gold is not merely a commodity. It is a monetary asset built on trust. When institutions increase their allocation to gold, they are not chasing excitement, they are hedging uncertainty. Gold responds to real interest rates. When real yields decline or become unstable, gold often strengthens. It reflects discomfort with the balance between debt, inflation, and monetary policy. Fundamentals such as mining output change slowly. Supply growth is gradual. Demand from jewelry and industry is relatively stable. What changes quickly is positioning. A pension fund reallocates. A central bank increases reserves. A sovereign institution diversifies currency exposure. These shifts happen before official economic stress appears in reports. That is why gold often moves before recession data confirms weakness, and before inflation data reflects structural cost pressures. Silver's behavior adds context. Unlike gold, silver is both monetary and industrial. It is used in electronics, solar panels, medical devices, and advanced manufacturing. When silver begins rising alongside gold, it suggests that capital is not only seeking protection, but also preparing for constrained production costs. Historically, in the 1970s, gold strengthened before oil surged dramatically. In the early 2000s, gold bottomed before energy entered a sustained bull phase. In more recent cycles, metals have frequently signaled stress before broader commodities adjusted. The sequence does not guarantee outcomes, but it establishes probabilities. Gold acts as the system's thermometer, not measuring temperature, but measuring confidence. When fiscal deficits widen and monetary policy faces pressure, gold quietly reflects that tension. For business leaders and entrepreneurs, this is not theoretical. If gold is signaling declining confidence in monetary stability, discount rates may shift, currency volatility may increase, asset valuations may face recalibration. Silver's participation suggests that industrial cost structures may also feel strain. At this stage, oil has not yet moved decisively. But historically, when metals set the pace, energy rarely remains disconnected. He observes the pattern without urgency in tone, but with urgency in implication. Gold has already spoken, silver has confirmed. And oil stands near a threshold that, if crossed, will not remain a market story alone. It will become an economic one. He notices the change not in the headlines, but in the ratio. For months, gold had been climbing steadily, controlled, measured, predictable. But then something shifts. Silver begins to move faster. Not slightly faster, but decisively faster. This is the moment when the story changes. Silver is not simply a smaller version of gold. It behaves differently. It carries two identities, one foot in monetary protection, the other in industrial production. When silver begins outperforming gold, history suggests that the market is no longer preparing only for currency instability. It is preparing for physical constraint. The gold-to-silver ratio becomes the first instrument he examines. When the ratio compresses, when silver gains strength relative to gold, it often signals increasing demand beyond defensive positioning. It suggests capital is no longer only protecting itself. It is anticipating expansion in real assets. Silver is used in solar panels. Silver is used in semiconductors. Silver is used in advanced electronics, medical equipment, and electrification infrastructure. Unlike gold, much of silver's supply is consumed. It does not sit quietly in vaults. It moves through factories. That is why silver volatility is higher. It reacts not only to monetary stress, but to supply tightness. And supply is not expanding easily. Mining production has not accelerated at the pace of technological demand. New discoveries are limited. Environmental regulations, slow development. Capital expenditure in mining remains cautious after years of underinvestment. This creates a fragile equilibrium. When investor positioning increases at the same time industrial demand remains firm, price acceleration can become nonlinear. He recalls prior cycles. In the early 2000s, silver lagged gold at first. But once confidence in the commodity cycle expanded, silver outpaced nearly every major asset class. In 2010 and 2011, silver's move was not gradual. It was vertical. Not because global growth suddenly doubled, but because positioning met limited supply. The same structure now deserves attention. Managed money exposure in futures markets tends to amplify silver moves. Options markets create gamma pressure. Short positions can be squeezed rapidly. Silver's smaller market size magnifies these forces. But this is not speculation in isolation. It is confirmation. When silver strengthens after gold has already established direction, it indicates that capital rotation is widening. At first, money moves defensively into gold. Then, it expands into silver, accepting greater volatility for greater exposure. This transition matters. It suggests the system is moving from simple risk protection toward anticipation of higher input costs. Silver's industrial component means rising prices can signal expectations of continued infrastructure spending, electrification investment, and supply chain strain. For entrepreneurs and business operators, this is not theoretical. If silver prices rise persistently, it may imply higher production costs in sectors tied to technology and renewable energy. Margins can narrow if companies cannot pass costs forward. But there's another layer. Silver also reflects liquidity conditions. When liquidity expands, speculative flows increase. When liquidity tightens, silver often corrects more violently than gold. Therefore, sustained silver strength suggests that liquidity has not fully retreated, or that markets anticipate its return. He understands that silver is a bridge asset. It bridges fear and growth. It bridges protection and opportunity. It bridges monetary caution and industrial demand. When that bridge becomes active, the system is transitioning. Gold alone can signal anxiety. Gold plus silver signals preparation. And this preparation has implications beyond metals. If capital is positioning for constrained supply and persistent monetary uncertainty, then energy markets cannot remain detached indefinitely. Energy sits downstream from industrial demand. It fuels transportation, mining, manufacturing, logistics. If silver is anticipating sustained production and constrained inputs, oil may soon face similar expectations. This is where the sequence becomes critical. First, gold establishes caution. Then silver confirms expansion under constraint. Then oil absorbs the pressure of real economy transmission. He does not interpret silver's move as excitement. He interprets it as escalation. An escalation in positioning. An escalation in anticipation. An escalation in the pricing of tangible assets over financial abstractions. And when escalation spreads from metals toward energy, the cost structure of the entire system begins to adjust. Silver may appear volatile. But volatility is often the visible surface of structural shift. Gold began the signal quietly. Silver is amplifying it. And the amplification suggests that what began as protection may soon evolve into repricing. Oil has not yet fully responded, but historically, it rarely remains patient once silver accelerates. That is where attention turns next. He does not look at oil first. He waits. Because oil rarely leads a monetary transition. Oil confirms it. While gold reflects trust and silver reflects constraint, oil reflects consequence. At this stage of the cycle, oil is not exploding higher. It is not collapsing either. It is hovering, compressing, testing a range that appears stable on the surface. But stability in oil is often temporary. Energy markets have a habit of remaining calm until positioning, supply discipline, and macro pressure align. Then the move is not gradual, it is decisive. He calls this area the threshold, not a specific number on a chart, but a structural zone, a zone where producers reconsider output, a zone where hedge funds rebuild exposure, a zone where governments begin watching closely. Oil differs from gold and silver in one important way. It is not a hedge, it is an input. Every business touches energy, directly or indirectly. Transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, digital infrastructure, all depend on fuel somewhere in the chain. That is why oil is the transmission mechanism. When gold rises, it signals monetary discomfort. When silver accelerates, it suggests industrial tension. When oil follows, it transmits that tension into the real economy. Margins begin to feel pressure. Freight costs adjust, airline pricing shifts, construction budgets recalculate. He studies the structure beneath current oil prices. Years of underinvestment in upstream production have reduced spare capacity. Environmental, political, and capital discipline pressures have limited expansion. At the same time, strategic reserves have already been used in prior attempts to stabilize prices. This creates a narrower buffer. If demand stabilizes or rises modestly while supply remains disciplined, prices can respond disproportionately. Oil markets are highly sensitive to expectation. If traders begin to believe that growth will hold steady or that geopolitical tension will restrict supply, they reposition quickly. And oil repositioning tends to move through futures markets first. When open interest expands near key levels, when producers hesitate to hedge aggressively, When refiners lock in forward contracts, a buildup forms. That buildup becomes fuel for volatility. He remembers previous cycles. In 2007, oil consolidated for months before breaking upward into triple digits. In 2021, energy markets seemed controlled until reopening demand collided with limited supply. The pattern is consistent. Compression precedes expansion. Now he connects the sequence. Gold has already indicated caution within monetary policy. Silver has begun signaling industrial and positioning pressure. Oil is approaching the point where it must either confirm or reject that message. If oil breaks higher with conviction, it will not be interpreted as isolated commodity strength. It will be read as cost inflation re-entering the system. And cost inflation is more difficult to neutralize than demand-driven inflation. Central banks can slow demand by tightening policy. They cannot easily produce more energy. This distinction matters for business leaders. If oil confirms the move suggested by metals, companies face a double adjustment: higher capital costs from tighter financial conditions, higher operating costs from energy repricing. This combination compresses flexibility. Equity markets often react after oil has already moved. Credit markets react even later. That delay creates risk for those who rely on lagging indicators. Oil is not only about supply and demand, it is about psychology. When businesses expect higher fuel costs, they raise prices preemptively. When consumers expect higher prices, they adjust spending behavior. Expectation becomes embedded. He watches for one critical development: sustained movement above the compression zone, accompanied by rising volume and positioning. That is the confirmation signal. Until then, oil remains at the threshold, quiet, contained, observing. But thresholds are temporary by nature. Once crossed, they redefine the landscape. If gold and silver have been setting the pace, oil is the instrument that spreads the rhythm across the economy. And when energy joins the rotation, the conversation shifts from asset allocation to structural repricing. That shift does not begin with panic. It begins with alignment. Gold aligned first, silver followed with force. Oil now stands at the edge of decision. And once it decides, the entire cost architecture of the system may adjust accordingly. He no longer looks at commodities individually. He looks at alignment. Gold has strengthened. Silver has accelerated. Oil is approaching confirmation. When these three move in sequence, the issue is no longer about metals or energy alone. It becomes about structure. Because when real assets begin setting the pace, financial assets must respond. This modern financial system is built on assumptions: stable input costs, manageable inflation, predictable discount rates, and accessible liquidity. When real assets rise together, those assumptions begin to weaken. The first pressure point appears in corporate margins. Energy costs rise, raw material costs follow, transportation expenses increase. Companies initially attempt to absorb the pressure, then they attempt to pass it on. But pricing power is not universal. Some sectors can transfer costs, others cannot. This is where differentiation begins. Businesses with strong balance sheets and flexible pricing models adjust. Those operating on thin margins struggle. He studies how equity markets typically respond. At first, they ignore commodity strength. Then they rotate internally. Capital shifts toward energy and material sectors. Finally, valuations compress across broader indices as discount rates adjust. Higher real asset prices often coincide with higher inflation expectations. Higher inflation expectations influence bond yields. Bond yields affect discount rates. Discount rates determine equity valuations. The chain reaction is slow until it is not. Credit markets add another layer. If input costs rise while growth moderates, corporate earnings weaken. Weak earnings increase credit risk perception. Credit spreads widen. Refinancing becomes more expensive. Highly leveraged firms feel pressure first. In past cycles, this sequence has repeated. In the 1970s, energy shocks compressed margins and forced structural economic adjustments. In the early 2000s commodity cycle, resource-intensive sectors outperformed while growth equities lagged. In 2022, energy repricing coincided with valuation contraction in technology sectors. The lesson is not about predicting collapse. It is about recognizing transition. When gold moves alone, it may reflect caution. When silver confirms, it reflects broader positioning. When oil joins, it reflects cost transmission. Transmission is the key word. Because once energy costs rise persistently, businesses must adapt operationally. Supply chains are reconsidered. Inventory strategies are adjusted. Hedging programs become more active. Entrepreneurs begin locking in forward contracts to stabilize expenses. Large corporations expand risk management teams. Smaller firms without hedging capacity experience greater volatility. Capital allocation decisions shift as well. In low-cost environments, companies prioritize expansion and growth initiatives. In rising cost environments, they prioritize resilience and efficiency. Cash flow stability becomes more valuable than speculative expansion. He emphasizes that systemic repricing does not happen in a single quarter. It unfolds gradually. At first, analysts revise forecasts slightly, then earnings estimates are adjusted. Then valuation models incorporate higher base costs. Markets rarely ring a bell announcing regime change. They drift into it. Another implication appears in currency markets. If commodities rise broadly, countries dependent on imports may experience currency pressure. Exporters of energy and metals may see temporary strength. This affects international trade relationships and cross-border investment flows. For business leaders operating globally, this layer adds complexity. Foreign exchange volatility compounds input cost volatility. Planning cycles shorten. Strategic buffers become necessary. He views the alignment of gold, silver, and oil not as isolated price action, but as a macro message. A message that capital prefers tangible assets when monetary credibility feels uncertain. A message that cost structures are shifting upward. A message that liquidity conditions may become less forgiving. The final alert is therefore not dramatic. It is procedural. It advises preparation rather than panic. If oil confirms the pace set by metals, entrepreneurs and executives must consider, are supply chains flexible enough? Is pricing power sufficient? Is debt structured prudently? Is exposure to volatile inputs hedged appropriately? Those questions define resilience in a real asset regime. He concludes with perspective. Gold has signaled caution. Silver has amplified the message. Oil stands ready to transmit it. If the sequence completes, the economy does not collapse. It recalibrates. And recalibration favors those who observe early, who adjust gradually, and who understand that when real assets set the pace, financial assumptions must follow. The alert was never about price targets. It was about alignment. And alignment, once established, rarely reverses without consequence.